The European Union is described as reliable. Ghana's Supreme Court that delivered its verdict a few months ago on the election petition challenging the outcome of the 2020 presidential election. The Supreme Court in a unanimous verdict dismissed the petition, describing it as meritless. Commenting on the verdict, the European Union's chief election observer, Javier Nart, said the hearing was conducted in a neutral manner.
What has been the decision of the court? We have full confidence in the procedure and in the legitimacy of the courts in Ghana. So the decision of the court, we accept it because we think it's reliable and acceptable, and it was proceeded in a normal and, let me say, neutral way. I don't think that there is something capital here in Ghana. It is that you trust in your institutions. For example, if you put in any other country, even let me say I am from Spain, that parliament is divided equally in two, it will be a great fighting between two sides. Here you have that. You have the chair that is from the opposition party, and the parliament is working. And so the institutions are respected, and when the institutions are respected, the country is a solid country, a stable country, and a democratic country, and I do think you are.
The EU Observer Mission added that in spite of the isolated cases of violence that resulted in a number of deaths, the election was peaceful.
Of course, there were 5 people that were killed, and it is not good news at all. But when you see the general outcome of the elections, they were produced in a very, very peaceful way. For example, you have something that is vigilantes. Vigilantism didn't appear at the elections. Could be, and it happened, this and that. But when you see a general situation, to focus in this disgrace, 5 people killed, is not the general situation. That's why we stressed that the elections were reliable, were credible, and proceed in a peaceful way, apart of those 5 disgraces and some cases of violence, but a very minor one. Ghana is very, very big, and millions of people. So 5 tragedies, it doesn't mean the tragedy of Ghana, it is 5 tragedies indeed.
But since 1992 that Ghana have been having these successive elections, this is the first time that this number of people are dying at the polls. And so even the NDC minority in parliament are calling for a probe, official probe of parliament to unravel the circumstances behind the situation.
This is absolutely important, to establish what happened, but at the same time, to establish what is the meaning of vigilantism. Because, frankly speaking, everybody knows that vigilantes exist. But have you seen any party recognizing that they have their own vigilantes? So they come from Mars? You have to address it.
The European Union also reiterated its stance that the 2020 election was free and fair and competitive, although it added that the election was characterized by abuse of incumbency, misuse of state resources, and vote buying.
The process successfully met a range of international standards. Voters participated freely in large numbers, and the overall conduct of voting was assessed positively in 95% of the polling stations observed, almost 400 polling stations. However, shortcomings already identified by previous European Union election observation missions remain. These include the misuse of state resources for elections purposes, the abuse of incumbency, vote buying, and unregulated campaign finances. The report contains 18 recommendations covering these and other areas of the electoral process. Among the 18 recommendations proposed in the report, the European Union Election Observation Mission has identified 8 as priorities. First, procedure for presiding officers, returning officers, and regional coalition officers to be stipulated on how to proceed in cases of irregularities during the counting and coalition process, including overvoting, mismatched reconciliation, incomplete and wrongly filled in result forms. Second, the Electoral Commission to publish on its website detailed polling station results for all elections, as well as detailed results from all levels of coalition, well before the deadline for filing petitions against results. Enact and implement, this is the third, enact and implement an affirmative action law, installing at least a 30% quota of women in governance and decision-making positions, with a progressive increase to a full parity of 50%. It requires political parties to adopt party quotas to promote women's participation in politics. Fourth, adopt a law on campaign expenditure and finance to enhance the overall transparency and accountability of political finance. The law to include establishing disclosure requirements of incomes and expenses for parties and candidates, and limits on expenditure and donations, including foreign-kind donations. Introduce effective oversight, sanctions, and enforcement mechanisms that include a timely publication of all campaign finance reports, including online. Fifth, introduce an effective sanctioning mechanism against the misuse of state resources, including administrative and security apparatus during the election period.
The National Democratic Congress is, however, challenging the EU Observer Missions report. Deputy General Secretary Peter Otukono says the report cannot be accurate.
So far, we have just received the EU report. We just had a meeting with them, and we didn't miss words at all. We think that the report was wholly defective. It didn't report actually what happened during the elections. We have since rejected the report and requested that if it is possible, they should make the necessary addendums to reflect what really happened during the elections. How can the EU report on election 2020 and will not recount how 8 innocent citizens lost their lives during the election? How can the EU report on 2020 elections and will not mention all the brutal attacks by state officials, state security officials that were openly seen on social media, on TV, with videos in such a report? We think that the report is very, very defective.